Hey, everybody, it's Chris again, and welcome to the Small Business Safari. And as we start out every episode, we say cheers.
Cheers.
Wait, that wasn't Alan. Who is this? Well, let me tell you who this is. He is from behind the scenes. He's our producer, Ed. But before he was producer Ed, he also was technician Ed, then operations manager Ed, and then the general manager of the Home Service Institute, Ed. He has had many hats while he's been with me, but we decided to bring him out. Alan's on vacation this week, so Ed and I are going to kick it around a little bit and talk about the great journey he's been on with me, and we'll talk about all the different things that have happened to us and people and different things that have happened to us individually. So with that, everybody, welcome to Producer Ed, and we're happy to have him with us.
And I'm very happy to be here.
Good. We're excited about this.
Yes.
All right, Ed. So a little bit of background for everybody. Why don't you tell us how you got here?
How I came to Atlanta, Georgia?
I think so.
Okay. Well, that was in 2010. I had been working for a general contractor who's building custom homes, most in the mountains of Western North Carolina, up near the Asheville and Black Mountain area. Little thing called the housing bubble burst, starting probably at the end of 2008. And by the end of 2009, we were out of houses because nobody was building particularly vacation homes in the mountains of North Carolina. So it became a search and figure out what Ed was going to do next. So I had a little money saved up. And I made the decision after a couple of months to move to Norcross here in the Atlanta metro area because I have family here, mom and dad, two sisters, all living in Georgia. None of us originally from Georgia, but all wound up here. So I decided to move back down here or move to here to be closer to family. And so that's actually how I got here. Now, how I got to you, do you remember?
I do remember when you first started, but I don't remember how you applied. So why don't you tell us your side, and then I'll tell you what I first remember about Ed.
I think that I did it through Craigslist, if I remember. It was just responding to an ad. Yeah, that was it. I had been on one other interview before yours with a contractor who was looking for project managers. I do remember that. And your ad probably hit me because of the word handyman, because I've been in construction most of my life, but like you, started out in the corporate world and ditched that, then came to, so the word handyman, I think, resonated with me. So that's probably why I called, made an appointment. If I remember right, I got one of the gals on the phone who just took the information. I do remember that you called me back on a Saturday to set up the job interview. I was having lunch with my sister and her daughter at PDK Airport. There's a great little hamburger place up there. And I was just like my second bite into the hamburger and my cell phone rang. And since I was looking for a job and it was you, I answered.
I love it. So I remember you coming in, you had a lifted Ford F350.
F350, that's right.
Lifted up, big old redneck North Carolina mountain truck.
It looked that way, didn't it?
It had a bumper on the front of it that was made out of a 2x6.
Yes, it was.
That was a handyman's truck. So we talked, and your background, of course, is very impressive. 4-year degree, worked in banking, then owned a bar for a while, and then got into the construction industry, owned your own tile business. And
Yep.
Your story of moving here to be closer to mom and dad just really resonated. I went, well, look, you look like you may be a little overqualified for this. And you said,
I remember you saying that.
You said, no, I'd like to give it a shot. I'm like, all right, let's give it a shot. So here's what I really remember.
Oh, here he comes.
Day 1, day 2, day 3. I think on the end of day 3.
Oh, you're going to tell the story about the ladder.
That's right, everybody. We're going to tell a story about the ladder. And as a manager and an owner, you're looking for great employees. You're looking for great people who want to come along that journey with you, right? And I felt like this guy had something going on. There was a lot more to him than just being a technician. I said, you know what? I got a good feeling about this guy. And we have a facility. We locked it up. and you didn't want to take your ladder home in your big old work truck. So you dropped the ladder off at the back of our facility, which is fair game for everybody to steal everything. And so the ladder was left outside. I think you texted me to let me know because I was the operations manager. And I went, uh-oh. And sure as shit, it was gone. Gone. And I'm like, oh man, I had so high hopes for this guy, but he's an idiot. Well, who the hell would leave a ladder in the back of a shop in an industrial park and think that that thing was going to make it overnight? It doesn't happen in our world. In fact, we got people diving in our dumpsters all the time. We know we got to watch what we're doing. And we've also had catalytic converters stolen off vehicles. We've had vehicles broken into. So it can happen. So that ladder was gone. And I was like, dang it, man, this guy, I thought he was going to be so good. And I'll remember I was sitting in the office and we were doing some other stuff. I think I was getting the schedule ready. And who comes to the front door but Ed with a new ladder,
A brand new ladder.
and he said, I made a mistake and I'm going to own up to it and I'm going to buy the ladder. And so here it is. I returned it. And I went, I knew there was something good about this guy.
Yeah, we still have that ladder too.
And we still have that ladder today. So we put you out there and you started working in doing the handyman thing and going around. And one of the things you did is you did a daily log of everything you did.
Right. That's right. I
You
sure
tracked
did.
your mileage, you tracked your activities, you wrote down what you did. And I remember you coming in and showing me because there was a question about a job and you said, I remember that job. It was a couple of weeks ago, but let me go back and look at my notes. And you brought that notebook in and I went, holy crap, this guy is a note taker and detailed. But basically it was a daily log of what a handyman does and how he does
That's
it.
right. I used it because I knew if I had repeat customers that I could go back and I could remember their dog's name or their kid's name or something like that. So, my memory isn't that great. So I thought, oh, if I just jot a couple of notes down about, something, it'll help going forward. So,
And it definitely helped
Yeah.
because we used that log and I was trucking along. And at that time, I think we had 6, 7, I think we got to the 8th handyman. And I was the operations manager, the estimator, running the office and going out and doing sales
scheduling.
and scheduling everybody and doing a lackluster job at all 3 things. And I went, Ed, it is time to come into the office. And you said, all right,
That's right.
we're going to transition. So we transitioned you from handyman to the operations manager. It didn't happen overnight. Had to still finish up a few jobs, but you brought that log in and you started to implement things without me even saying it. And this is the thing that really started to resonate with me is when the right person got in the right position and took a lot off my plate. One of the things we talk about as owners is how much are you worth an hour and what are you working on? And if you're not working on the high value things with a big impact that only you can do within your company, you might not be doing the right job or the right thing for your company. And so I had that position of operations manager in there in my little box, and I gave it to Ed and I gave him a loose definition on this is how I do it. This is what I do. I schedule. I have to order things. I got to answer questions from the guys in the field on what's going on. And you took it and ran with it. And I remember coming in one day after doing estimates, because I got out there and said, all right, I'm going to let him go. And I went off and just sold and sold everything we could sell. And you'd have to figure out how to implement it. And I came in and one of the things you did was instead of trying to schedule the job that you win today for tomorrow, give me a little time to digest it, see what's going on so we can set our employees up for success.
That's right. The right tech for the right job on the right day. That's
And
right.
so you said, listen, Sparky, let's slow it down a little bit. These guys need to have a little bit of time. I got to make sure that we can translate what you were selling to make sure that they were set up for success. So today on our mission plaque that we have in our business says, we set everybody up for success. You are set up for success.
That's correct.
Because we want everybody to be successful. So when you first told me to slow it down a little bit, I did not like that because I was on the run, just like everybody else and running your own business. You're busy, running. You got to get all that money in as fast as you can and get all those jobs going so you can get from 8 people to 15 people in 2 nights. And you can't do it like that because you also felt enough power to basically tell me no. And you felt enough that you could say, I think there's a better way.
Yep. I think you hit the nail on the head right there. Because see, from my perspective, after the ladder incident, from my perspective, coming to work for you was an exciting challenge because there was something about you when I met you, and I could never, and I still to this day can't really put my finger on what that was, but I saw the potential. I saw the growth. I saw the drive, and I saw the stick-to-itiveness, if I can use a word like that, of where the company could be, where the Trusted Toolbox could go. And there was a little part of me that went, I can fit in here because after knowing you for about 6 months, I saw what your weaknesses were, and knew that I could help in some of those areas. But that's not to pat myself on the back. You also knew what my weaknesses were and were able to help me move forward in parts that were difficult for me going through it, as we've gone through this growth process.
Yep.
So
scaling a business is really hard. And, talking to our audience, you're either thinking about starting your own job or your own business, or you're in the middle of it and you're figuring out how to scale and how to make sure you must use the most efficient use of your time, because all we have is time. And when you look at that, that's the one fixed commodity between us billionaires and people who don't even find jobs. You gotta use your time right. So we had a lot of good dialogue. We went back and forth. We had a lot of heated dialogue. Well, at least heated on one side, and the other guy just looking at me going,
yes, right.
And I remember one time I said, "Are you listening to me?" And he said, "Yes, I am. I am just taking notes." And I realized that was him saying, "Slow it down. Let me take this, let me process it, and let me come up with something better." So what are some of those original things that he came up with that were really cool? So I was doing scheduling, and I was scheduling guys wherever the jobs could go. Again, trying to find the right job for the right tech on the right day. And I wasn't doing the best of setting them up for success. He said, "Slow it down. Let me work on this." So you would review each job, and you had a great knowledge of the activities that were being undertaken. And you also got to see the photos that we took. A little loose at the time, but much better today, of course. But you also did something that was really cool, and you made a map, and you cut out a map. This is before you could buy them. And actually, I think I thought about buying a map, but it was like, I think $1,000. I'm like, that's too much money. So you went out and you bought a couple maps of the Atlanta area.
That's right. Yeah.
You laid them out on a table.
Right.
And you cut them up.
Yep.
And then you put a pin in the middle of the page where our office was.
Where our office was. That's right. Yep.
And you drew concentric circles that show you the time to get from that spot
right
to the next spot.
The office. Yep.
And when you look at Atlanta, we are a spider web. We have actually gone out. I talk a lot about this with our team, is that in Atlanta, one of the biggest challenges we have with the traffic is that our system is not set up like a grid. There's no north and south. There's only hub and spoke. We start in the middle and we go out. So you have these circles that basically say 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour and 20. And you had those circles drawn out. And I'll be damned if those things aren't exactly on.
Yeah. I remember making those maps. It was kind of interesting, because as I was thinking about, well, number one, I was new to Atlanta, even though my parents had been here for quite some time. When I go to a city, if I go on a vacation or something like that, I want to absorb the city. So I always find that, for example, Washington, D.C. is one of my favorite places to visit. I like the architecture of Washington, D.C. Not so much the buildings, the architecture of the buildings, but the way the city is laid out, how it's planned, and getting from point A to point B. So anyway, that's a little an aside, but I like to absorb the city. And the best way for me to do that is with a map. So buying these maps, interestingly enough, you can't just go into a pharmacy like a CVS or a Quick Trip or that kind of thing and get several maps of the several counties that we're in. What I had to do was I bought those maps at Quick Trips only. And the only map that was available at the Quick Trip on that little shelf and stand, that kind of thing, was the county that the Quick Trip was operating in. So I had to go to 6 different counties, 6 different QTs, make sure that the maps were the same scale. And that's why I was able to paste them together. Because what's that thing like? It's like 7 foot by 7 foot. It's a huge map, but it's all taped up and stuff. I was interested the other day when I met Paul for the first time. He was on your podcast recently.
Paul Italian from Archer Restoration.
Paul Italian, that's right. He said it reminded him of what did he say? It was the like the bomb or the concentric circles made him think of. Oh shoot! What did he say?
I can't remember what he said. But I think it was something about a nuclear bomb.
It
but
was he said a fallout. He said it
Fallout.
was the fallout.
The fallout,
That's
that's
right.
right.
It reminded me of a fallout.
So we
thought,
take
oh,
that
that
map
was
and we
funny.
put that map on the wall, and we're still scheduling our guys to get out there. But the one thing that we took away from that, or I took away, that we started to do a better job of scheduling is in the handyman world, when you're running out and you've got just 8 guys, if you're in home services at all and you're doing more than one job a day, you've got to figure out where your guys are coming from and where they're going to. And if you try to get into another job that's not even close, what's going to happen is we're going to have a lot of windshield time and not a lot of productive billing time. And we did a better job, and we kept driving in the scheduling and the routing of the guys and getting them to the right spot as quick as we could. But by having that map, we were also able to train Cindy, who had been with us for quite a while in the office, to start to see what was going on when we were scheduling estimates, when we were scheduling handymen. And I think you saw a big change in what she was able to see as she took in that same thing, because she didn't have the same passion you did for spatial awareness or absorbing a city.
Right.
And so we started on the northeast side of Atlanta in Duluth, and now we're in Norcross, but we started there and we started growing from that. And we would do jobs wherever they would take us, because that's what I did. I would do anything to anybody at any time.
Right.
And as we grew, I saw that map really help not only Cindy, who has been in the office, but our next employee was Sean Zakers.
Right.
And she came in and she was able to see that too.
Yeah.
And at the time we were on a client server based system. The guys had all paperwork orders. They'd have to start at the shop or have their work orders printed out for them for the week. So they
Boy, that was the old days.
This is the old days, right? And we had this paper process. And then you said for us to have a better approval process, you created a stamp. And we use this stamp, the chop.
Oh, that's right.
The chop. Okay, I have now made the chop. And at one point, we're rolling and we're growing, but that spatial awareness really helped us. As we continued on that journey, Ed came to me one day, and again, good relationship where he feels empowered to be able to tell me that something's up or something's wrong. And he came in and said, "I'm crying, Uncle.
Oh, that's right.
I can't schedule." At that time, we were up to 10 guys. I cannot schedule.
At that time, we were up to 14 guys.
14. When you finally said that's right. Because at 10, we were good. At 14, not so much. And he said, "Uncle, I need help." And I went, "Okay." He goes, "I got to do one or the other. But I think it's time for us to find a scheduler." So let's talk about how we went looking for that scheduler. One of the things that we did, and that I still do to this day, is I said, "All right, let's create the avatar."
That's right. Marie, wasn't it?
It was Harvey.
Oh, it was Harvey. That's
Harvey.
right. Because we
Harvey.
were looking for that avatar, that military
Avatar,
right.
disciplined. He was your drill sergeant in the military who would say, "Come hell or high water, we're going to go do this. And I don't want excuses. We're going to go do this. And this is how we're going to do it." So Harvey had to be probably a little rough around the edges, probably not the best at customer service, but also Harvey wasn't going to give away your company. And at the time, we used a consultant to help us with our disc profile. And that's the one who implemented the disc profile for me and my company. And I still use to this day and feel like it's a valuable tool for us.
Sure.
And we brought in the candidates, and we brought in 5 candidates. It was nice. At least we were having people apply for jobs, which in this day and age right now, seems like I can't get anybody to apply.
That's tough today.
Yep. And I remember bringing him in, and I picked my top 2. I picked one guy who I really liked. He was a nice guy, great conversation, good background, had been a dispatcher before. And I brought in another great candidate, and her name was Deborah. And I put them both through the disc profile. And then the consultant called me up and said, "I like candidate 2," without seeing the names. And I said, "Well, that's Deborah. I need Harvey. I need a man." And I was being a male chauvinist pig, no doubt about it. I said, "But I like this other guy." She said, "Chris, the other guy is so bent on customer service, he will give away
Your
company. He
Yep.
will give away your profit. He will bend over backwards to help customers without realizing that the customer's not always right. You have to do right by the customer, and you will lose your technicians because they'll get frustrated, and you will not have any profit." And I
Yep.
was like, "So tell me more about profile number 2. This person was a mortgage banker. She was used to processing paper, but she also had been in basement remodeling. She had also worked with her husband side by side in the remodeling world as he ran his own remodeling company. And so the more we talked about it, the more I went, you're right. And we brought Deborah in. And if I had brought that other person in, it would have been a train wreck.
It would have.
Now, why was I so ready to bring Deborah in? Because Ed cried uncle. And what I did is I grabbed a little printer stand and I put myself between Sean and Cindy. And I was in the office toe to toe with them, put a big monitor up there in front of me. And I had 2 monitors down below and a big monitor up in front of me to start doing the scheduling. And I was literally, I could reach out and touch both of them. And I would tell you that it wasn't comfortable for those 2 at all. And I was doing this, but I would tell you at the end of each day, I was so mentally done that I couldn't even think about the business. And as an entrepreneur, we all want to put the entrepreneurial big evil genius hat on and come up with the mad scientist and come up with all these great ideas. I couldn't do it anymore because I was so involved in being the technician. I wasn't the technician in the field. I was the technician of learning how to schedule guys, getting the right guy to the right job. And in the morning, what we talk about is the morning time of getting guys to the right jobs. You have 3 variables. You have the guys, your employees.
Sure.
Are they going to show up, or do they last too long in the other job? So there's a variable. You have a customer. Are they going to let you actually show up to their house today? Well, that sounds like a weird thing to say. Well, guess what? When they don't let you show up today and they've had a change of plans or something happened, they can't show. And then we also have, because we do exterior and interior work, we also have that other variable of weather.
Yeah.
And in the morning, one of the analogies that we talk about a lot is if you can imagine taking a rubber band and taking it, and if you go in and out with a rubber band just a couple inches, it comes back to shape. And then maybe 5 or 6 inches and it comes back to shape. And maybe 7 or 8 inches and it comes back to shape. But if it gets out to 10 or 12 inches and snaps, that's what happens. And that's what was happening to me is I was snapping.
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh, that's it. We have got to find somebody. And I remember bringing her in and starting her, and she was everything that we thought she would be. And she has
some, yeah, for sure.
And she has the hardest job in a company. If you have a dispatching system, or if you have to manage multiple employees out there in a remote spot, dealing with the customers and the general public, with those 3 variables, your morning is critical. So we talked about day of, and then eventually she'd have to start laying out the big rocks and start planning it out. And when I was training her, I remember sitting there going, well, we just got to fill it up, because as an entrepreneur, I want to put them all in there. I want to get this thing going. I would fast. And I would run away, and I would go out and start selling again, doing the things I love to do, and talking with customers and selling things and bringing things in and just being out in the field again. And then I would come back in. I remember I came back in and you and Deborah were talking, and she got hushed. She just got really quiet. And I went, well, what's going on? And Ed says, because he felt like he needed to let me know, he said, Chris, based on the way you're telling Deborah how to do the job, we're speeding up and going too fast again, and we're not putting her in a position for success. We need to allow her to do the scheduling. You can't schedule at 100% capacity every single day, every single week, because there's going to be changes and fluctuation. We've got to leave us gap in there. And I'm like, no gaps. I want 100%. You're like, nope, it just doesn't work like that. I said, all right, I'm going to let you guys do it the way you want to do it. And she has continually done that, because you said you always leave little spots. You always know Mondays are going to be crazy in the home service business.
Yep. If you've got 15 techs and you schedule 15 techs on Monday, you're going to have one guy sitting home doing nothing, because the odds are the more techs that you hire as you scale up, like we were talking about, our magic number was 16. We had 16 techs. We scheduled 15 jobs every day. And that worked. And we just found that sweet spot for us, and it worked for us. Now, it might not work for everybody, but it certainly worked for us in dispatching and scheduling at the Trusted Toolbox for sure.
Yep. You guys did a great job in getting that going. And the thing that was really interesting in watching our growth is that we were paper-based, and it was time to make a switch. And we made the switch, and we switched to a web-based online system, but we couldn't give up the paper because I just wasn't ready for it yet.
Right.
And we had to go to this new system, and that new system was very frustrating, because I was the one who had to be the IT implementer and the consultant doing this change management of our employees and how we had to handle it. The technicians didn't see any difference, but everybody in the office was really struggling. So we had a lot of paper-based going on, but we kept after it, and we kept changing and kept improving.
Right.
And today, there's very little paper. We only have one printer in the office, and it gets used maybe once every other day.
Right.
And now all of our employees and technicians in the field have iPads. And now with our process, they can see photos of the work they're going to do. With education, they allowed them to educate themselves before they go to the job. And Deborah has done a better job of scheduling than I ever did and ever would do. She is in the right
Or
position.
that I did. Sure.
She has allowed these guys to hit their own personal and professional goals. She set them up for success because she knew, like your drill sergeant, that we're going to go and we're going to go do a 5-mile run. We're not doing a 3.5-mile run. We're doing a 5-mile run. And at the end of that 5-mile run, you're going to feel better about yourself. But if you only ran your 3.5 and didn't get there, you're going to wonder why you're not getting in shape. And in our case, with the guy scheduling, hey, if you don't have anything for me tomorrow, don't schedule me. And 2 weeks later, when we had payday, they go, man, my check's light, man. I just can't make any money here. Well, you're right. You can't make any money here. But Deborah doesn't put up with that. She's like, I'm going to make you run those 5 miles. I'm going to make you work because you want to hit these personal and professional goals. You have to do that and be the person you want to be for your family.
Right.
And it's called tough love, people. That's tough love and discipline.
That is tough love. But I mean, it's also let me help you. Here's how I can help you, and let me show you how I can do that. Because if you follow the process, if you follow the rules, the technician is going to understand in time. And some of them, it takes a year for them to understand that, and some of them pick it up pretty quickly. But the scheduler is there. Deborah is there to help them make money. That's really what the bottom line is. Everything that we provide for them, like you talked about the iPads moving from the paper-based to the iPad system, that's a tool. The iPad is a tool to help them make money, giving them the most information we possibly can get them before they get to the customer's house to actually start doing the work, no matter what work it is. It just empowers them to have this at their fingertips. And I think the kind of the common theme that we've been talking about here is, if you've noticed, is efficiency. And that's what has been enabled, I think, the Trusted Toolbox to grow the most, is to become efficient as we scaled and got larger over the course of the last 14 years. You talked about the map, of course. You talked about, the elimination of paper, empowering people to do their jobs the way that they know how to do those jobs best, even if it might not agree with you as the owner of the company. So this efficiency that we've been building over the course of the life of the Trusted Toolbox is it really pays dividends. Here we are today at the size that we're at, still hovering at 15 technicians, but because of these efficiencies, the bottom lines start to increase as a result of that, and that's really important to grasp, I think, for entrepreneurs or small business owners or that kind of thing. So.
Yeah, sometimes, and I'm guilty of this, I like to change for change's sake, or I like to keep changing things. I'm not a best operator. I realize that about myself, and I have to have those people in position who can do the operations. But we also have to have that opportunity to keep continually looking at efficiency.
Sure.
And I remember looking at the iPads and kind of running back and forth with it. First of all, it's an initial investment.
Sure.
And then you have to have the network. They have to have the cellular data. But today's world, without that, I mean, when I first started, we had Garmin's and I had a camera and I had a flip phone, and I would call people on the way. We didn't really text message much, but I used my Garmin to get there. And then I would come back to the office or use my laptop and start writing up the estimates. And the guys would get the pieces of paper and go out there and get them and sign them and get them all signed up. And we followed that process. But now today, we are doing the iPads, and it's a chunk of change. You think about that. I have actually, we have 15 technicians. We also have the 5 estimators, and we have the project managers. We have a number of iPads in the field that need the cellular data.
Sure. And
so you got to pay that monthly bill. And when you look at that, you're like, oh, wow, that's a big expense. But when I look back on now what we throughput in a month compared to what we throughput in before,
exactly,
it far outweighed the expense. But it was a hard decision to make because it was expensive and there was a lot of training we had to do. And let's face it, we talked about this. We didn't think the technicians would even know how to use an iPad.
Yep. We were pleasantly surprised, though.
We were pleasantly surprised. And I think that's why we get people who are sticking with us. In one side is that we make their lives a little bit easier with what we're doing, because in this war for talent, especially that we're in now, trying to keep these guys here and making sure they're hitting their own personal and professional goals, we have to get them to do things our way, because we know our way is going to be the right way for them at the end of those 2 weeks when it's payday.
Absolutely. Yep. And we can show them that. And it's important to ask one of the podcasts that you did. I don't remember. It might have been your dad. If I anyway, uh, it was something about coaching the little league team. Uh, Boys need to know what to do, and girls need to know why to do it.
Yep.
Something along those lines.
It is. Yeah.
And I think the why is important to everybody, though, not to be misogynistic or sexist about it. But I think the why is ingrained in every person. If you can tell them why, or you can show them why, and in the case that we're talking about, it's the technicians. How can I make more money? How can I meet my personal and professional goals? If you can show them this is what we do and this is why we do it, well, you see the little wheels start to turn behind the eyes, and it's important to them, and it also at the same time shows that you're compassionate about their situation. So it's a win-win.
Yeah, definitely. When you build that culture that we have here now, or you build your culture anywhere in any company, one of the things we've talked about a lot, and I'll continue to bring this up, you have a culture in your company, whether you know it or not, whether you're a solopreneur or if you're an entrepreneur and you've got 4 or 5 people and you're that merry band of misfits and bandits going out there making things happen. You have a culture, right? You got a culture, you got to rock and roll it. So in our culture, one of the things that we realized 4 years ago is that really I wasn't in the handyman or training. I wasn't in the handyman or remodeling business. We were in the training
They
business.
were in the training business. Yep.
And we started to develop it. And that's how we came up with the Home Service Institute concept of talking about how to train these artists who learn a little bit different way. Cause you just hit on, they need to know a little bit of the why. And to be black and white,
Sure.
boys need to know what, girls need to know why.
Mhm.
But girls definitely, if you just tell them what, still are going to ask why. So these guys still wanted to see the why, but they would believe it once they started to see it actually made their life better. And it's not just money. These guys in the home services world, and I think for a lot of people, you want to get up in the morning, you want to have a productive day, and you want to go home at night. And at the end of the night, when you're sitting at home and you've done that 5-mile run, as opposed to, or you've done the job you said you were going to do, and you sit down with your family, or you sit there and have your own alone time, you had a great transaction or an easier transaction that day, and you're getting ready for the next day. So we all want to have an easier transaction where we get to demonstrate our capabilities, and we call our guys artists. And you get to show off your art and do all that stuff. So we really focused in on the training, and that's why we developed customer service training, operations training. But we also know that a key component to our training has got to be that technical nature. What can you do to make my job easier, man? Blah, 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 customer service, blah, 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 operations. Oh, wow, look at that new tool. Hey, I like that. You mean you can stand up and use a tool so you don't have to bend over on your hands and knees and screw in deck boards? Hey, I'm interested.
Wow.
Show me that thing again. Whoa, dudes. And we rolled that out, I remember a couple of months ago, and the guys, you just saw everybody light up. And how do we finish the meeting? We talked about words matter. We talked about making sure we knew that on our iPads, you've got a wealth of information. You got to start using it. But that tool that we showed them at the end cemented those other 2 things. They all remembered all 3 things.
Yep.
And that was key. And I think that's part where you have grown into this position now, where you're helping me on the podcast and producer Ed and the Home Service Institute, and helping to provide training to other home service companies out there to help them understand that has made my life easier. That has actually also helped me get out of that constraint of how can I scale and get more efficient.
Exactly correct. Yep.
So I often joke that I wish I could have robots go and work in houses, but I can't. So I still have people, and I'm in the people business.
Yep.
And so in this world that we're in this war for talent, I continually get flipping frustrated that I can't even get people to apply. And then when they apply and you talk to them on the phone and say, hey, come on in for an interview, they stand you up. And now
They ghost you.
They ghost you. And it's like 8 out of 10 right now, man. I'm telling you. And that number, if that number's not happening to you in your business, I'm going to call bullshit, because everybody I've been talking to has been getting ghosted.
It's that high? 8 out of 10. That's crazy.
Right now, it's 8 out of 10. In the beginning, it was more like 2 out of 10.
Yeah.
And then it morphed into like 5 out of 10. And then we scheduled 4 interviews in a day, and 2 or 3 would show. Now, this week, I'm over. We were supposed to have 5 interviews this week, and not 1 person showed.
Wow.
Yep. That is just mind numbing. And you start to question yourself. Maybe
Is it me?
Yeah. Is there something wrong with my business? Is there something wrong with my culture? Did I not put the right carrot out there? Am I not looking for these people the right way? And I've tried a number of different ways to find people. I'm on, You talked about Craigslist, and that's why I wanted to come back to that. Well, I don't even use Craigslist anymore
Yeah.
because nobody's looking there. I try Indeed and ZipRecruiter. Are those guys looking there? Not all the time, but you got to put it out there. We're using Facebook ads and Instagram ads now to see if we can't pull off people that way. I've had people say, hey, go ahead and do it on the radio. Then I talked to a guy who did it on the radio, and he said, nope, it didn't work for me at all. In fact,
Nothing.
the people who called were just looking to see how much I would pay them because they felt like, hey, I was desperate because I needed people. And so they came in and said, basically, I'm gonna work, but I need to make as much as the company makes.
Right.
And I'm like, well, if you want to make that, buddy, trust me, you won't like that number either. But they want to make as much as you're charging the customer. You're like, you can't do that either, because remember what we're doing. We're setting you up for success. We did the legwork to get the job ready for you, and we set you up to go do what you need to do. Have an easy transaction, demonstrate your capabilities, and go home and share your success stories with your family.
It's that sense. It's that a sense of accomplishment. That's what's the motivator is. It's just a job well done. Wow. Look at what I did today. It's that accomplishment. So because back to your point, you were saying it's not always about the money. Well, with the technician, you're absolutely right. It's not about the money with you. It's not about the money with me or most of the people that we meet. Well, sure. Some people it's all about the money, but finding that person who is a little bit more, I don't want to say above that, but is looking for something more than the money. It's about an accomplishment. It's about the person that they are inside, having that come out and being satisfied.
Yeah, it reminds me of a great story that one of our best technicians brought up to me just the other day. And again, he feels also that I'm open enough to listen to feedback. He's part of our technician advisory board now, but he shared a story with me, again, not to kiss my ass or anything, but really just to share the story. When he first started with us, he was his own handyman, and he had Atlanta Property Manners. He was his own handyman, fully busy, but he had a life situation happen, and he needed to make a change. And what happened was he moved in with his in-laws, with his wife, and he needed to have a little bit more time with them. So he said, all right, I'll take a big pay cut and I'll just do this for a little while and see what happens. And he said, when I first started with you, Chris, I used to wake up in the morning going, how am I going to make the same number today that I would have made on my own? And I found myself making bad decisions. I wasn't thinking about the job. I wasn't doing it. And finally, I just started to think about today. He said, I was listening to what you guys talk about in training. Today, I'm going to be an artist today. I'm going to go out there and I'm just going to do the best possible thing I can for this customer. And I'm going to feel really good about it. He said, and then the next thing I know, the money started to happen. 3 years now, Chris, I've been with you. He said, this year, I actually showed my wife I made more this year without all the headaches I had before. I don't have to worry about my van. I don't have to worry about gas for my van. I don't have to worry about insurances. I don't have to worry about all these other things. So when you take it out and then you look at what I made versus what I would have made and then had to pay, he said, I actually had a better year this year than I did my last year being in my own business. And I was like, aha.
Yep.
That's the kind of guy I'm looking for. A guy who's probably sick of working on his own and having to do the entrepreneurial thing that I'm talking about to you on this podcast. And that is, wow, I'm going to go out there and start my own business. Well, you know what? Starting and running your own business is really hard damn work, man. And you talked about that, and I appreciate that too, is that one of the biggest traits of entrepreneurs out there, what do you got to have? I think you got to have optimism. It's probably number one. But number two, if you've got to be a problem-solving, persevering problem solver.
Yep.
And it's hard. And so now he gets to go do what he's doing. He gets to do what he needs to do for his family. And it was really cool because he picked up what we were laying down on that training, which was awesome.
He did. He sure did. He'll be with us for quite some time, I'm very sure.
Yeah, well, we hope so. That's right. So let's transition and talk about something else that you and I talked about. I had a chance to have an article shared with me, and it was talking more about the millennials today.
Right.
But I think we all got a little bit of millennial in us. Again, what are they? Well, they're the younger people than us. I'm not that age, and we talk about that as I'm seasoned. But my parents said the same thing that our parents are saying, or as parents, that's what we're saying to the younger people is you want it now, you want instant gratification, and you don't want to work hard for it.
Right.
And it's the same thing. And their parents were told that because most of them, if you think back to the greatest generation coming off World War II, the people growing up and becoming kids, their 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and their parents were saying the same damn thing to them, right? You don't want to work for it. You just want it right now, and you're not willing to work. Come on. So talk about these millennials today. It was a great story because I think this holds true regardless of your age. So Ed.
Yeah.
There are two different groups. One is, why do people leave companies? Why do you leave a company?
Oh, the top reasons that you leave a company. Yeah. Well, what we had talked about, when you asked me this, I believe what I said was I would say the death of a family member, I thought would be the number one reason for that. The answer, that answer was in the top 10, but it was not number one, was it?
It was not number one. It was not number one. So, top 5 reasons people leave companies: personal reasons, not for the company. We'll talk about the company culture in a second.
Right.
Personal reasons. Number 1 is marriage. Getting married forces people to reevaluate what's going on. You've now decided to partner up with somebody and become a partner. And what they talked about in this article was that with that comes a new change in attitude and a new look on life. So I've been married and I've gotten married, and now I'm going to go change my job.
Right.
Number 2 reason, the opposite of marriage.
Divorce.
Divorce, the D word. Down you go. I failed at marriage, and now I have to reevaluate my entire life and figure out what I'm doing. And I'm guess because I got divorced that I need to go find a new job. Life happens, baby.
Life happens.
And we've had a lot of life happen here, haven't we, Ed?
We have had life happen, and it's happened to employees as well as present company.
That's right. All of us have witnessed it and had to deal with it. And so number 3 reason people leave is a birth of their first child.
Yeah.
And if you think about that, it's a very big stressor on a number of people. And so you have this big stressful event of having a kid. And so what do? You decide to reevaluate your life and try a new job. Okay. All right. So let's keep going. 4 and 5. Number 4 is I've bought my first home. Let's think about that one for a minute. Why is that such a big stressor? Because if you've ever sat down and bought your own home, where do they take you to? At the end of the life of this loan, you'll have paid this much. And you look at that number going, I don't even know there was that many zeros behind with that house I just bought, because they show you that big number at the end. And I'm telling you what, man, that's a shocker.
It is.
And I don't know how people evaluate how much of a house they should get in terms of taking on debt load, but we all seem to stretch a little bit more than we probably should. And guilty of that, by the way. And I've now been in my own house for 22 years. This house I'm in now it doesn't seem so bad, but in the beginning, man, it was a stressor. So buying a house.
And what's number 5?
Number 5 is I got to a new education level. Either I got a 2-year degree, I got a 4-year degree, or maybe I got a project manager certification, or maybe I've gotten new certification with Amazon or Microsoft. And so now I'm going to go off and look for another job. How about that?
Wow.
So 5 reasons. And right now, what we do know is that all employees are looking. You say all? No, okay. All's the wrong word. And I say that all the time in my company. But the study says that right now, 50% of your company is looking for another job.
Yeah.
50% of the people expect to leave this position within the year. So let's talk about how you keep them more. So in your company, I can't help you with your personal life. I can't make you not get married. I can't make you stay married and not get divorced. I can't make you not have a baby. That would be a really overlording dickhead. How about that move?
Ooh.
If I did all that, I'm like, no, you're not allowed to get married. No. Well, I'm leaving anyway. So you can't handle that. Life happens outside of work, but in work, what can you do? So there are top 5 reasons people leave companies and the culture that they're in. Number 1, they leave the boss hole.
The boss hole.
The boss hole. Are you a boss hole in your own business? If you're a solopreneur, you probably are, but do you like working for you? I don't know, man. But next one, if you have people and you're a boss hole, what is a boss hole? You know, I think one of the biggest things we're missing too is that I think a lot of owners and business owners and managers are not very self-aware.
Yeah, that's extremely true. That's to put up the sharpest point on it right there. I think that's an overinflated view of your of who you are. It's what you project is a lot different from who you really are. And I think people over project a lot.
Yeah, I agree with that. I thinking about it a lot, and I try to be more self-aware every day. And it's hard because when you're in the throes of things, who's the best sales guy in our company?
Well, you are, of course.
Right. Who was the worst sales manager in the company?
Again, check that box. You.
Right. So now we're getting ready to open up our Athens market, and I'm out there training our new general manager on how to sell.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also having some of the other guys help sell as well. So I think we're rounding that out. But one of the things I realized is that once I get him going in Athens, I am not going to be a good guy to train him on how to build his business in terms of managing employees day to day, managing his first employee, managing the customers, and understanding all those things we just talked about that we have to do in our business. And so I said, Ed is going to help you.
Yes. Great.
So I'm self-aware.
You are self-aware. That's right.
Yeah.
Know your limitations.
And on that one, we did. And I think that's going to work out really well. And I talked to the general manager about that, and he is super excited to do it. So that's great. Number 2 reason people leave companies
After boss hole. Number 2 is
culture.
culture.
You have a culture in your company, whether you know it or not. I see that line. I say that line a lot because it's important to know it. Is this a party? Is this a place where people actually want to show up and hang out? Or is it a morgue, a place where they go, God, I just can't wait to get out of here. I'm watching the clock. Your culture in your company is important. Are you guys open to suggestions? You have to be the boss at the end of the day. You got to be the one who takes them through that 5-mile run. You got to know that you got to be disciplined enough to do it. But are you doing it the right way in your culture? And we actually had a good example of our culture getting stretched. And as an owner, I'm gonna share this story. Ed and I had talked years ago about Hope Solo was the goaltender for the women's national soccer team.
Mm-hmm.
And she was an amazing goalie, amazing athlete, and they won the World Cup and they continued to win. And what happened to her is she got an overinflated sense of self.
Yeah.
She started to call out other players. She started to talk behind people's back, and she became that toxic member of her team. And that was the one year they didn't win the World Cup.
That's correct. They got knocked out by Sweden, I believe it was. Anyway.
So we shared that article and we talked about that.
And what happened? And what happened? The team was going to board the plane to leave because they were knocked out of the World Cup. And Hope Solo got on the plane. And all the other players said, I'm not flying on the plane if she's on the plane. And guess what they did? They asked Hope to take a different plane.
Wow.
Yeah.
Think about that culture of that group. They were stronger than that one toxic employee.
Yeah.
That one toxic team member who was arguably their best player.
Holds all kinds of records in women's soccer as a goalkeeper.
But,
sure.
But the other 20 plus players said, I'm not getting on that plane. I am leaving this company. I am getting out of here unless she goes.
That's right. That's that culture.
That had and smacked me in the face in a big way this year. The culture that I built here at the Trusted Toolbox is one of being open and honest with people. And I don't let people come in and say, Chris, do you have a minute? Let's talk about this other person. I'm like, no, we're going to do this together with the other person. We're going to figure out what's going on. And that's our culture. And the culture is we're in it together. We're in it as a group because we have to provide a service to the general public using technicians that may or may not believe in what we're doing, but our culture here in the office has got to be strong and one of being together, being participatory, being somebody that knows that they're in it to win it together.
Right.
And our culture got stretched. And as a manager and a business owner, I wasn't completely blind to it, but I would say that I had definitely one eye closed and the other one kind of slid open. I was really trying to find a good fit for this individual in our company. And I kept moving her around and it just didn't work.
Yeah.
And I finally saw enough cracks with the culture in the company where I had a little birdie tell me that somebody was about to quit. And I also had an employee who said I couldn't come in on Monday because I needed to rest my ankle. Yeah. And I went, uh-oh, something's going on.
Yep.
So I made the call.
Ding,
I made
ding.
a very hard call and I got rid of her. And then I told the team. I brought all the people in the office together, and then I immediately started to text the people in the field to let them know, everybody who was impacted by her. And when I told the team in there, let me tell you how this culture goes. Ed came in, said, hey guys, you want to start clapping now? And they all laughed. And then individually, one by one, came up and said, thank you. One guy came up to me and said, that was the right call, sir.
Yep.
And I realized there that our culture survived this toxic employee, but by leaving them in the culture, I was going to lose a lot of everything we had built.
Yeah, toxicity. We talk about that a lot. Fortunately, we've only had a couple really in the 14 years.
Yeah.
It's not been that bad, but that poison that a toxic employee can send out is much more harmful than just themselves and what they are or are not doing. But it affects the people around them. And if you're in that team environment, as we are in the office, it's pretty close, it's tight knit. We're sitting on top of each other for the most part. It's hard not to get into everybody else's business. You got that one person that's in there, boy, you have to weed that out as quick as you possibly can. And sometimes it's hard to do. I remember the first toxic employee that I can remember was probably the number one estimator we've had, and better than you even, to be quite honest with
I agree
you.
with that.
He really was. But he was just not in it for the team, not in any way, shape, or form. And I remember saying, toxic. Be careful of a toxic employee. Anyway,
he was our number one salesperson.
Yeah.
Far and away, far exceeded every goal I'd ever set for myself, even.
Yeah.
We put up with it. Well, what started to happen? What does a toxic employee look like? Like you said, well, the activities look like this. Tuesday morning, he's supposed to go out and run 5 sales appointments. Tuesday morning, he texts everybody and says, can't make it in today, not feeling well. And then it became, can't get a hold of him. 2 days, 3 days. What do we have to do? Well, in the office, we have to scramble around, get new sales appointments. We have customers who are expecting him. Chris, we need you to come out of the office, go out there and do the sales call. Totally disruptive, doing everything we talked about in the beginning of this podcast. Is we were moving too fast and we were costing ourselves a lot of distraction time, and we were not providing a great customer service.
Yeah.
Because we were scrambling around. When I finally decided to tell him it was time to go, this is how long it took me, by the way, is that we looked at the month of August. We have 20 working days. He made it to work on 4.
Yep.
And I said, yep, we're done. Our number one salesperson is out the door. And what happened is everybody started to relax again. And we got back into a groove with somebody who was stable and coming to work every day and doing things. And was he a better salesperson than the other person? No, he was not. But he was dependable and reliable, and we were able to go provide that great customer service that we're working on in our own jobs.
Yeah. So tell me, so going back to him, tell me what was going through your mind. I mean, how do you, as a business owner, take your top salesman, bringing in revenue, right? He's selling the jobs. How do you make that decision to say it's not enough, or what went through your head? I mean,
it was a really hard decision.
You go, no,
I can deal with it. Yeah. I just finally said, no, that was it. I think the tipping point was Cindy in the office showed me how many days he was literally out in the last 3 weeks. And it was only, I said 20 days, but it was really 15. But of those 15, he only made 3 days and was completely ghosting us and wasn't coming back. And I went, wait a minute, we deserve better. And I thought about that. I thought about the ladies in the office, and I thought about me continually scrambling around every day doing this. And when she said that to me, I went, wait a minute, we deserve better. We've done right by him, and he's not doing right by us.
Yeah.
And I do remember, I would tell you, it was hard. I remember I let him go out in the parking lot outside. And I remember I just had to take a walk before I could tell everybody because I was like, what did I just do to myself?
Yeah, sure.
And it was painful and it was hard. And I got back in my sales shoes and I went out there and sold my butt off. And then while I'm looking for another guy, but in the end of the day, again, that's a stupid phrase. I would say at the end of the 2 months, I realized we were a lot better off.
Yeah.
And it was really unfortunate, but knowing that and doing it, people always say hire slowly, fire quickly. Well, bullshit. It just, in this world, especially with this war of talent, you're trying to work with what you got. You're trying to see if you can't keep them molded in, and you need to have that discipline to say, you're not a good fit for me.
Right.
And I think I'm better at it now. But it's still, that was the first toxic employee that I actually had to, whether in corporate America or in my own business, that I had to get rid of, that I didn't want to, but I needed to.
Right. That just backs up the point that, your realization that we're in the training business, and that's all a part of it. His behavior, her behavior, whoever's behavior, if it's not lining up with what you need, it's a hard call, but you have to make that call because look at the people around that person who are also being affected by it.
Yeah, you got to keep an eye out on that. That's just, again, it's hard. It's really hard because you've invested so much time in this person.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the other thing that was really hard for me is I'd invested so much time, and now I had to go back and reinvest time to retrain and onboard somebody. And we've been through a number of sales guys since then for re-onboarding. And I'm hoping this next run is going to be a lot better, but we'll have to see how that's going. So that's number 2. Number 3 is job fit. Just not a good fit for the job. And the study says that only 20% of people doing their job today are in the right fit.
Wow.
And this is the Jim Collins, good to great, get the people on the bus. But once they're on the bus, do they have them in the right seat? Get them in the right seat. Yeah. And so when you're doing that, I feel that one's a big one. 20% of people are in the right job today. And that's actually allowed me to fire quicker now, is that with this last toxic employee, I was continually being told she wasn't making enough money and that she had to give blood just to even make ends meet. And you're like, okay, why is that my problem? You're like, well, you aren't paying me enough. Well, yeah, but you're not doing enough. And look at what else you're doing. I'm going to allow you to go find that job that's a better fit for you. And that's the way I explained it to her.
Yep.
Is that I know there's a great fit for you out there in a company. It's just not here.
Yeah.
And that allowed me to free her up. And in fact, I'm pretty sure she's already gotten another job. So
yeah,
we're in the right spot. So number 4 is the one everybody's probably been looking for, is I just want to make more money.
Yeah.
And so that's number 4. And number 5, something else you can do is there's no growth opportunity. That I'm going to be stuck in this job forever and I got no way to grow.
Wow.
And that's why I sit there in this war on talent and continually look at how are we going to break through our current constraint here in Atlanta of improving our efficiency and getting moving. Is I got to be able to show opportunities for the right people. And we're already thinking about another opportunity for one of our current technicians. We allowed a growth opportunity to allow one of our project managers to run remodeling now. So there are opportunities that will happen and grow, and there's still more opportunity that will happen, even if we suffer a little bit of a downturn in our economy. But I still think it's great to show that off as well.
Sure. Yeah.
Ed, I've loved having you come off.
All right.
And come on the scene and come out from behind the computer.
Behind the computer.
Do not look at the man behind the computer. But Ed, we always ask 3 questions, and you've heard us always ask these 3 questions, but we got to ask you the same 3 questions.
Oh, really? Okay.
What is your favorite feature of your house?
Well, you'll see, you've been in my house once, and you probably will say, I don't know if he's got a favorite feature because my house is in the constant state of construction because I enjoy it so much. I probably have to say my kitchen. It is not complete. It doesn't have all its cabinet doors on it or drawers on it. I just do it a little bit of it at a time. But I love to cook. I'm not a great cook, but I like my cooking. So I'd say it's definitely my kitchen. It has a nice big island in the middle of it where I can do all my prep work. The island actually is laminate. Do you remember me showing you that off? I have a granite countertop in my kitchen, but the laminate on the island matches the color of the granite. It's amazing what they can do with at Wilson Art to match these different types of surfaces. So I'm going kitchen.
All right. He goes kitchen. I've been to his house. It is in a constant state of construction. And I will say, I thought you were going to say that your favorite feature of the house is your woodworking shop that for most people would look like the den.
Yeah, that's the den. Yeah.
Yes, the den. And he's got the table saw set up. He's got the chop saw set up. He's all ready to go. He's got sawhorses in there, and it's a den. It actually has a fireplace in it, the whole thing.
Yeah, but I don't bother anybody because it's just me in the house. So
yeah,
what
lovely. Yeah, and we're going to keep it that way because remember, number 1 reason is you're not allowed to get married.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Right. All right. Number 2, what is a customer service pet peeve? And I know you do training for us in Home Service Institute. We talk about this a lot.
Right.
But what is one of yours? And I'm looking for something that's going to be, I'm sure it's going to be mind-numbingly awesome.
Mind-numbingly awesome customer pet peeve. Well, a lot of your guests that have come up here, the recurring theme seems to be a lot of them is about the customer service, the looking me in the eye, the acknowledging me. And that certainly is right up there for me. But let me give you one that just happened just a couple of days ago. I don't use the drive-through in restaurants very often. Let's just say maybe twice a month or so. lunch or dinner on the way home. So, you know, the drive-ins that I'm talking about, it's either for a burger or a sandwich or a taco or whatever. What hit me was it seems for the last 6 months or so, maybe more, but in my experience, let's say, when did the person who's talking at you through the speaker when you're sitting in your car, when did they stop telling you what the total amount was?
That's a great one. I knew you'd be good at this.
It just shocked me. Now, see, I'm old school, right? I mean, we talked about millennials a little bit, but does everybody pay with their card now? Is that how it works?
It is.
Because I'm old school and I still have cash when I go to the drive-through window.
Dinosaur.
You know what? I am a dinosaur, older than you. I have a small cup in my seat of my car that I have change in. And it used to be if somebody said $6.82, I would take out a 5, a 1, 3 quarters. I would have the exact change for them. That's why I have the change in the truck. I don't want change back. So when you don't tell me what it is, I just got to give you a 20. And then I have silver that I have to put back in there that I can't use at the next drive-through. So when did that start happening? Anyway,
his money jingles, jiggle jiggles doesn't. There's a phrase out there. Anyway, that's a great one. That if you pick up that nugget on that, is if you think about it in business, is why aren't you telling me how much it's going to be before you do it? Well, I don't know. Well, in a restaurant at a drive-through, you do know.
You do know.
You told me what it was going to be, but don't make me add it up and add the tax in my head and I'm figuring
exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
All right, Ed. I know you've done a lot of work in houses and in other people's houses, but I want the nightmare story of a contractor.
The nightmare story of a contractor. There have been a lot that I have been on both sides of. Seen done by other contractors and have been in a company where this has happened. I don't know if there's a best nightmare story, to tell you the truth. It seems like we've had previous guests on your show have had things that have to do with water an awful lot. We have in the Trusted Toolbox been exposed to a small fire by a subcontractor of ours that has worked on. So fire and water they've been done. One of the biggest arguments I think that I ever got into with a customer, which he saw as a DIY fail, was in the mountains of North Carolina, we don't have natural gas buried, in the street, the natural gas line. So everything up in the mountains, you have a tank for, and that's propane. So we heat with propane, we cook with propane, just like down here in Atlanta. You just, you turn the knob on, it comes right out of the ground through your meter. There was a customer that we had who told me that we weren't going to be burying his propane tank, 1,000-gallon propane tank, correctly. This particular customer was involved with the emergency evacuation system, like hurricane routes and toxic oil spills or tankers on the highway. He worked out of Waltham, Massachusetts. So he did the I-95 corridor between Massachusetts and New York City. That was his baby, his job in the government. And he had done the research to tell me what had to be done, the processes that had to be done to bury this propane tank. And it was something, I might say this wrong, but forgive me if I do, but there has to be, when the propane tank is buried, there has to be a magnesium diode connection,
okay,
for it to be grounded correctly. And I thought this was all smoke and mirrors by this guy because it just sounded like an awful lot of money. And he was convinced that we had put that into the quote that we have given him.
Right, of course.
And this particular magnesium diode connection, grounding connection, was going to be about $1,500. Well, short story is that we ate the $1,500 and did it. So was it a nightmare, a scenario, or a DIY nightmare? It wasn't for me, but it certainly felt like that for the customer.
All right. And I'm going to remind you of one that I was personally involved in that really happened to you. And I'm going to tell this story.
Uh-oh.
Yep. It's coming. And then we'll close up the podcast. But before we do that, don't forget to go out there, man. Follow this show. I just got a great review out there telling us how cool we are, and how
Sweet.
fun and exciting, and we're giving you all great information.
And it's
because-
gritty and irreverent.
and gritty and irreverent. So what is it? Well, I did a job at a customer's house where we were supposed to help them with a toilet that wasn't, the water was just not flowing right. And it was erratic and it was sporadic on when it was coming back. But we were doing some other work in the house. And they said, instead of calling a plumber, can you guys work on this? And we did. We sent out one of our best technicians. That's Edd Konopka. And we sent out a new guy. His name was Ted. And Ted was no Ed for sure. And I remember you saying, Chris, I can't figure out what's going on, man. You want to come take a look? And I came out there and took a look, and we snaked it. We snaked, like, I think we even snaked probably 30 feet. I mean, it was crazy.
Yeah.
Couldn't find it. And then I forget who came up with the solution, but I think it was you. And you got out to you saw where the water was going out of the house, the sewage, the main 4-inch line.
Yep.
And you went and you opened up a hole in the wall, and you said, haha, I see it. It's not here. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut the pipe. And we realized that somebody had put a screw through a cabinet in the garage and right through, and put the bolt right through the 4-inch pipe.
Somebody thought it was a stud, but it was actually a 4-inch waste pipe. That's
4-inch waste pipe.
Yep.
So I left
with a 4-inch screw.
I left and said, okay, you guys got this covered. Great way to go. So you took it out, you cut the 4-inch pipe, you were able to find out what's going on. And I remember you told the story, and you're like, Ted, just keep tapping it, keep tapping it, keep tapping it. And all of a sudden, what came out?
Well, everything came out.
Because what's in the sewer, or what's in the pipe that goes out?
Plenty of things that you don't want on you.
Right.
And all over you.
Yes.
From your head to your socks.
So let's go. Not only was it shit, it was tampons. The lady kept flushing these tampons down, and they blocked it all up. And that's why it was an erratic, sporadic thing. And it came flying all over you. And you said, I had to go.
I was out in the front yard with the hose full on me at my head for at least 20 minutes.
So I remember you saying,
God,
I'm out of here. So I had to come back over and clean it up, get stuff in the bags, and worked with Ted, who was definitely no Ed. And the customer sitting there looking at us. And, I don't know what they were thinking, but they definitely didn't think they caused this problem.
No. And it was a rental house. The people that were in the house were renters. Yeah.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Yep.
So that, my friends, is the shitty Ed story.
That is the shitty Ed story.
That is it. And so once again, we've had a great episode. Got a chance for Ed to come out, talk about what we've done here to grow our business and get going. Hopefully you picked up a few nuggets, a few gold nuggets of what we do. And until next time, keep rising up that mountaintop of success and get where you need to be.
All right.